अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. We record this on Friday, the 28th of March at 11:15 in the morning. Today, Manisha is not with us. She is going to be on Charcha, our Hindi weekly podcast this week. So we have in the studio Raman Kirpal,
Hello.
Anand Vardhan,
Hello.
whose beard is going a little out of control. Is that a new look or just don't feel like shaving?
Yes, well, it was born out of laziness. Then I thought it was a manageable laziness.
I actually calculated over my lifetime, I have saved about 3,60,000 rupees in shaving blades and foam. You see, sir? So by the time you're my age, you could have also saved more than that because of inflation adjusted.
I do it once in a week, so
Okay.
it doesn't pinch me.
And Jayashree joins us from Chennai.
Sadly beardless, but yes, hello.
Sadly beardless, but
Yeah.
Anuvab Pal will be joining us later. Very well known and, in my view, very funny stand up comic. We'll be talking about, you guessed it, the Kunal Kamra fracas. But before that, I will do what I always do, which is urge you to subscribe. There is a QR code flashing on your screens right now. Scan that and contribute on the Newslaundry News Minute project, on the impunity of India's police. We have seen that in action in Maharashtra, on the most ridiculous whim of, in my view, an uneducated political leadership who clearly do not even understand what the constitution allows and doesn't, have set what I call their private militia, which goes by the name police, unleashed them on the club that hosted Kunal's show. The Tamil Nadu police, meanwhile, has also barged into the home of one YouTuber. Right, Jayashree, we will discuss that also.
And Assam police has arrested a journalist.
Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma is the genius who's taking India into the 21st century, who says digital media journalists are not journalists. एक तरफ Prime Minister is saying digital India, दूसरी तरफ Himanta Biswa Sarma from the Stone Age is saying only print and broadcast are journalists, digital is not journalist. Well done, Mr. Sarma.
He said we give advertisements only to print. Those whom we give the advertisement, they are the journalists. So those whom you have tamed
are journalists. Those
are
you
journalists.
Himanta Sarma, you're great. Yeah. You know, leaders like you will take us into 21st or 31st century straight. You are clearly a very educated man.
Also, just to clarify, I mean, the Tamil Nadu police is revolting, as are most police forces, but this specific YouTuber thing is slightly different, which is that Savaki Shankar said that a group of people disguised as sanitation workers entered his house. He said they did so, and they attacked the house, they scared his mother. So he says they did it on the behest of the police and that some Congress leader was involved. The police has said they are not involved, but to distance themselves from it, they formally handed over the case to the CID, saying that we will not investigate, let them.
In Assam, the visible cause given is prevention of SC/ST Act, atrocities.
This is the second case,
uh,
not the first case. First case was
The
filed.
He got bail.
He got bail. Second
security
case,
guard one.
security guard is SC, ST.
Complainant.
So he is the complainant. So he put it under SC, ST so that he doesn't get
Get
bail.
bail. the
Security guard of the same bank.
Yeah, so the first time he got bail.
Ha.
But so the QR code has been on. So this is an investigation where at least 5 of our journalists, whose name I have announced several times, I will not do so again, between the News Minute and the News Laundry team and producers, will be going across the country and investigating how the police acts with impunity, not in public interest, but against public interest. And it's very important we do the story. Meanwhile, you can also read the Kiran Bedi story. I will plug that later on this show. Subscribe to News Laundry, pay to keep news free. And if you do not like scanning QR codes, there's a link in the show notes. You can click on that link and pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. And when public is run by Sarkari ads, then it does Sarkari bidding. On that note, let's get the headlines. Jayashree, over to you.
Yes, so the first major headline is the Kunal Kamra case, where he sang a song referencing traitors, seemingly targeting Eknath Shinde. It triggered a storm. The venue of his performance, the Habitat, was vandalized by Shiv Sena. He was summoned by the Mumbai police, and a BJP MLA moved a breach of privilege notice against him. He's now moved the Madras High Court as of this morning for transit anticipatory bail, and he's also said he will not apologize.
And that venue has decided to shut down.
The venue has decided to shut down.
Lovely. Creating jobs every day.
And by the way, BMC had given them, the lessons to run that studio. I mean, now they are saying that you are not allowed to have such activities in the basement. But they had the lessons.
And while all this drama is going on, the Supreme Court today has quashed an FIR filed by the Gujarat police against a Congress MP called Imran Pratapgarhi. This was filed over a poem. The bench said that literature, including poetry, drama, film, satire, art, make the lives of humans more meaningful.
Right. So, kudos to the Supreme Court. I hope the Maharashtra police reads this judgment in full whenever it's uploaded.
Now, in Delhi, a day after piles of cash were allegedly recovered from a Delhi High Court judge's residence after a fire, he was transferred to the Allahabad High Court. The Chief Justice of India has now released a video of the incident and has set up an inquiry committee. The judge in question, Justice Yashwant Varma, says he's being framed.
Right.
Also in Delhi, Rekha Gupta has presented a 1 lakh crore budget with 10 focus areas. This includes Yamuna cleaning, economic empowerment for women, infrastructure, water, and connectivity. She says it's a roadmap to make Delhi self-reliant.
Yesterday, the Delhi CM was on the road, and several cows on the road stopped away, and then there is an ultimatum to all the cow shelters around who get the government money.
Actually, if any of you ever pass that road which connects the Nelson Mandela Marg on Vasant Kunj to the JNU road, there are about 20 cows there all the time, especially very early in the morning, because I pass there very early in the morning. And they've been there for years. So I'm sure they will be taken care of. I'm not holding my breath. But theek hai. Tamasha acha hota hai. Gaadi se utar ke walk down. Why is this happening? So let's see.
Now, adding to festival cheer for Eid and Navaratri, the following plans have been proposed by officials in Delhi and Uttar Pradesh. BJP MLA in Delhi, Ravinder Negi, and Neeraj Basoya have demanded the closure of meat shops during Navaratri since it hurts Hindu sentiments. In Meerut, the police have warned against namaz on the streets. They say violators will face registration of criminal cases, cancellation of passports and licenses. And the Delhi government's Art and Culture Department under Kapil Mishra is going to kick off a fortnight-long celebration to mark Hindu Nav Varsh. A grand ceremony will be hosted at Delhi Assembly. How exciting. The Supreme Court has stayed the Allahabad High Court's recent order, which said that grabbing a child's breasts, breaking the string of her pajamas, and attempting to drag her do not constitute the offense of attempt to rape or rape. The Supreme Court has said the High Court's order was totally unknown to the tenets of law. The CBI has filed a closure report related to the death of actor Sushant Singh Rajput in 2020. It says he died by suicide. I mean, my question is, everyone who drove this entire thing into a frenzy, will there ever be any accountability for it? Because, I mean, it was in the middle of the pandemic, right? It was when migrant workers were marching home, but every single one of them went after Riya Chakrabarti.
So, no one has apologized or anything. They just pretended that never happened. All the tamasha that
we was there, I didn't see Times Now and this Arnab show. Did they have a show on this after this?
They did not have a single show on the CBI's closure report. It is, as you said, it is like it never happened.
So, like 2008 Arushi case also, CBI gave a closure report. So, in the meantime, her parents were jailed also.
Yeah.
So, in public perception, I think the job is done. Means nobody looks at their parents with any sense of innocence. Most of the people don't look at that. It's more evidentiary.
Right. Parliamentary Standing Committee has said it's shocked that the Environment Ministry has utilized less than 1% of over 850 crores that was allocated to a scheme to control pollution. This was in 2024-25.
And after all the noise they make about pollution and they keep blaming this government and that government and the Delhi government, the centre is doing nothing, which is actually the best equipped to coordinate among four. So this is a good time for me to also remind you of our year-long campaign, which is the Fight to Breathe campaign. You can participate. Again, there's a QR code flashing. There is a link in the show notes. Tell us the AQI in your area. You can file RTIs. There is a page, a landing page we have on what all you can do to be a part of it, because unless we push and demand change, it is clear that the powers that be are least interested in cleaning up the air, no matter how many generations it kills. So do get involved. Let's push and force the government to act. So here's a QR code and there's a link in the show notes.
In Assam, Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma says individuals working for online news portals are not officially recognized as journalists under state government rules. This is after the Assam police arrested a digital news journalist called Dilwar Hussain Mazumdar for questioning the MD of Assam Cooperative Apex Bank. This is when protests broke out alleging financial mismanagement. I believe he works for Countercurrent.
Okay.
In a sharp reply to Yogi Adityanath's criticism of the three-language law, MK Stalin has said Adityanath's remarks are not irony, but political black comedy at its darkest. He says Tamil Nadu does not oppose language, it is against imposition and chauvinism. I believe Adityanath said that Stalin is just trying to create divisions because his vote bank is at risk. Also in Tamil Nadu, the government has introduced a resolution in the State Assembly against the Waqf Bill. It says it's an attempt to allow political interference and curtail religious freedom. Patna also saw demonstrations against the proposed bill. The protests organized by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board were joined by Lalu Prasad Yadav, Tejaswi Yadav and Prashant Kishore. At Oxford University, Mamata Banerjee gave a speech during which a group of student protesters showed up with placards and raised questions over the RG Kar rape case in West Bengal. Mamata said, if you want to make it a political platform, go to Bengal, tell your party to be stronger. Didi walks like a Royal Bengal tiger.
But shouldn't be tigress.
But don't do actor,
but the
actress.
leaders are mostly
There's
men.
no gendered words anymore, please.
Okay.
How old-fashioned.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
In a very interesting news development from the week is just Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was accidentally added to a signal group that consisted of Trump's top security officials to discuss what were meant to be secret plans to bomb Yemen. Other group members appeared to be Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. So he's written a very long piece in The Atlantic, which I think everyone should read, on just how it happened and what they were talking about. So also he said they discussed bombs were going to be dropped, and 2 hours later bombs did in fact drop. So.
And right on cue, we have the entry of Anuvab Pal. And we should have a sound effect. Now, whenever hero enters the film, well, Salman Khan enters, it's accompanied by loud music.
I wish, hello everybody, I wish that a middle-aged Bengali man in his 40s can replace Salman Khan. I don't think we live in that world, but I'm glad that there is thinking that such a world can exist.
Let us remember that Salman Khan is way beyond middle age. So,
correct.
Right. And the final headline is Donald Trump has announced sweeping plans to impose a 25% tariff on all imported cars and light trucks imported into the US. He said the measure will be permanent and will come into effect on April 2nd. So,
although what impact this will have, there doesn't seem to be consensus on this or whether it will even be a lasting impact. But yes, Mr. Trump continues to amuse the world, scare the world, and provide lots of material to the late night shows in the US, especially on this Atlantic editor being added onto that group. It has created such wonderful shows, and the response of the right-wing media and the commentators puts even the Indian media to shame. In fact, we have a mail here that's saying Abhinandan's observation a few years ago on Hafta that the US is institutionally strong, so it can withstand a Trump, hasn't aged well. So I do think it has. I mean, if we had a Trump equivalent here, it would have collapsed by now. But the US is still teetering on some sort of, method is because it fits institutional, I think, strength. But coming to the case of what happened in Mumbai, Jayashree can give us context, but I would also just like to, because this is happening as we speak, there is a case being heard in the Supreme Court regarding a Congress MP, and there was an FIR against him for a poem he wrote. So I quote from Live Law. Judges must protect freedom of speech even if they don't like what was said. Supreme Court quashes Gujarat FIR against Congress MP over poem. And Supreme Court says even if a large number of persons dislike the views expressed by another, the right of a person to express his views must be respected and protected. And they have quashed an FIR. Now, this is important to see in context of the anticipatory bail that Kunal has put out as well. And that is also a poem only or a song. So the bench was Justice Abhay Oka and Justice Ujjal Bhuyan. They were allowing the petition filed by Pratapgarhi that no offense was made out. Again, I'm just quoting. Free expression of thoughts and views by individuals or groups of individuals is an integral part of a healthy civilized society. Without freedom of expression or thoughts and views, it is impossible to lead a dignified life guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution. In a healthy democracy, the views of thoughts expressed by an individual or group of individuals must be countered by expressing another point of view. Seemingly criticizing the Gujarat High Court for refusing to quash the FIR. The Supreme Court observed, quote, the courts are duty-bound to uphold and enforce the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution of India. Sometimes we, the judges, may not like the spoken or written words, but still, it is our duty to uphold fundamental rights under Article 19(1). We judges are also under an obligation to uphold the Constitution and the respective ideals. Now, I do hope this is read in toto by the Maharashtra police. I don't know if you guys who went and decided to shut down the place or file FIRs or want to call Mr. Kunal Kamra for questioning, read this. I highly doubt they will, because the shamelessness of the police is only matched by the shamelessness of our politicians. That they will get latadoed and yet continue to do the same thing year on year without any shame. And of course, when anyone goes at the police, then they will cry that, oh, we are not appreciated, we are not... Remember that protest that happened outside this police commissioner's house in Delhi 2-3 years ago, where they were making a tamasha of, oh, no one appreciates us, oh, poor us, poor us. And on a daily basis, they're beating up people on the streets. So I'm afraid I have no sympathy for the police. So now, in Kunal's case, Jayashree, just lay the context of what happened, and then I'd like to know from Anuvab how much self-censorship he does and has he ever performed in this club. But yeah, Jayashree, go first.
So basically, in January, Kunal Kamra performed at the Habitat Club, which is located in a hotel called Uncontinental or Unicontinental or something. So during the performance, he sort of sang a parody of a song from Dil To Pagal Hai, which, without naming Eknath Shinde, called him a traitor, referenced a bunch of things that he did. And so it basically did mock him, but he never explicitly named him. Now, he uploaded that clip, I think, last week. As soon as he uploaded the clip, it was on a Sunday, Shiv Sena workers went to the club where another performance was taking place with another comedian, and they ransacked it. They threw the chairs, this and that. Then I think 2 FIRs were filed against Kunal Kamra. This was based on a complaint from Shiv Sena worker. A bunch of Shiv Sena people were detained for the ransacking, but then they were let off. Kunal Kamra, meanwhile, said he will not apologize. He said he'll only apologize if the court tells him to. The Habitat Club put out a statement distancing itself entirely. It said that artists are responsible for the content they put out. We have nothing to do with it, so it's not our fault. There's also that viral recording of a Shiv Sena worker telephoning Kunal Kamra and threatening him and saying, where the fuck are you and all. And then he says, I'm in Tamil Nadu. And then that man says, slightly stumped, but then how will I come to Tamil Nadu? Which I thought was great. And he has moved the Madras High Court this morning for anticipatory bail. And also in Maharashtra, I think it was a BJP MLA who has moved a breach of privilege motion against Kunal Kamra. And usually what happens when you move a breach of privilege is that they can call you to come and apologize, but they can also arrest you if so they wish. That is the TLDR.
Right. So
also that
yes.
A team from the BMC, because the BMC doesn't want to be left out of all this drama, they went to the club on Monday and they said they're looking into the property's structural plan to see if it is legitimate. So
yeah. So you've performed in many countries, Anuvab. You've performed in India, Gurgaon. I have attended your performances. By the way, Anuvab also has a podcast which I have heard every single episode of till date. I don't know why they don't update it more frequently. It's called Our Last Week. So on all your performances, do you take special care while performing in India? And if you do, which state do you take most care on in? Before you tell us about what you think of this fracas that happened with Kunal.
We all, I think, take very special care about the names we mention. I perform in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Bangalore, and I think there's a lot of thought that goes behind anything that's going to be put out online. If there is a name of an individual who is being berated, because chances are not usually the individual, just like in this case, not the individual, but his fans, supporters, people will, you don't know what they will do. In fact, when the deputy chief minister was asked about the incident, he said, I am all for freedom of speech, but people's outpouring of love for me, I can't control. Uh, and that may be completely true, like how many people, I don't see any mobs in defense of Kunal Kamra showing up to protect the habitat as a mob is showing up to beat. So maybe they have more people than artists have. And that's his, I mean, his comment was, I can't, I wouldn't obviously not condone this sort of thing, but I can't control the outpouring of support and love that my supporters have for me.
And even the guy who led that mob appeared on several networks. He was on several of the online. I mean, I must say the questioning to him, even among some of the online platforms, was pathetically weak. He said, I take full responsibility. I'm willing to bear the consequences. Dude, you have no consequences, no? You've got bail. There are people, who are in jail for 4 or 5 years for giving a speech on peace. I mean, the questioning to him was so pathetically weak. You could have cornered him. You could have made him look like an ass, which he is. I mean, he was even worse than Vivek Agnihotri. But of course, he's given a free pass. With this thing, I take full responsibility. Because you're not going to spend any significant time in jail. So, I mean, that whole thing is because the institution is with him. But
besides,
no, and meanwhile, they're planning to check Kunal Kamra's bank accounts and his call records because they're saying surely someone is behind this. So, I mean, he has no sort of expectation of bail, of privacy, of anything. It has been...
I just think that, a regular person, especially who doesn't have institutional backing, doesn't have the time, the energy, or the resources. Otherwise, Shinde saying on record that usne supari liya, it could be straight defamation. Can you prove it? If you can't prove it, shut up, man.
True.
You have the institutions of investigation behind you, and you've made if any of us make an allegation on a neta that you have taken money from someone to do this, you think it'll just go with the flow? These guys can say anything, any shit they talk, and they get away with it. So, I mean, I just think it's... and which is why just the way this discussion, goes about on television channels, it just doesn't take the power imbalance into account. But, coming back to you, Anuvab, before I go around the panel once again, have you seen the full show, the 45 minutes?
I have. And there's lots of different things in it. I mean, there's a large section on Sudha Murthy in it.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, it's I mean, look, Habitat is I mean, I don't know if people know, but I think this was recorded in very early February when Kunal was, and I think he workshopped it a number of months, the new hour, over December, January, in various cities around India. And then obviously the outrage only comes when it comes out online, right? So I think he's been doing this show for a number of months. And Habitat is somewhere where all of us perform quite regularly. Our last week, the podcast that we do, the last live show was at Habitat.
Oh dear. So now?
December. No, in that Bombay doesn't have that many live comedy venues. I mean, India in general, Delhi has a handful, Bombay has a handful, and Habitat was very much the center of it. Now, it's like, I mean, if you go and break, say, Habitat Delhi, because you didn't like a performance, there's a variety of performances that happen in that venue. What is the poor venue supposed to do, right? You can have a contentious comedian. You can also have a comedian that talks about dating. You have panel shows that talk about Tinder. You have somebody talking about the chief minister. Now, that's just the nature of a venue, right? Like there'll be a variety of artists. I think Veer put out a post sometime saying, um, essentially what you do by ransacking a theater or a venue like that is essentially you're saying that this art form should stop, right? Like, and I mean, without, I mean, it's a power thing, right? Like artists don't necessarily have any power, right? The point is that Kamra is resilient. Like most of the messages I get when something like the Samay Raina thing happens or Kamra happens is, oh, this is very brave. And but the point is that the after effects of this, most of the people will move on to the next news cycle. But that comedian and his poor lawyer will have to live with this for 6 months or 8 months or for the next 20 years or whatever. Like someone has to show up. And at the end of the day, I think for a lot of artists, the income doesn't justify the pain. Like the public, because public fame is also so fleeting now that a lot of artists think that the success that I get out of the earlier, maybe the burst of popularity from something like this that made you viral and FIR, etc. And that was tempting, maybe. Like even in Munar Faruqi's case, if you remember, he went to jail. He hadn't even done a show.
Right.
They arrested him, right? Then he ended up on Big Boss. So, I mean, there's a whole cycle of success and failure. Like people forget, right? Like, but the artist has to live with the consequences. And for a lot of, not very wealthy or not very famous artists, it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth having to live for this for the next 15, 20 years and having to pay for court cases because the case will keep dragging. And, I mean, think about someone like Kamra or somebody like that. Like, is his time going to be spent in just handling police and court cases or doing specials or writing stand-up, right? I mean, if he's going to spend most of his day handling and knowing the nuances of the law, then he's not really an artist. He's just a guy that deals with lawyers. So and many people think there's no point in many ways in doing this profession if the consequences are so,
dire and long lasting. I think
long lasting is the main problem. And then if they file a case in Assam or in somewhere else, then you're running from one end to another. And this has happened to so many, like, for example, in the more interesting one, because Kamra directly took on a political party, and obviously in India, like you said, they have institutional backing, they'll come after him. But if you remember, just before this on the India Got Latent controversy, all 45 people who were judges ever on the show
we're all
Yeah.
were all called in for questioning. A lot of colleagues. I was supposed to judge one of the things. I unfortunately ended up having something that weekend and I couldn't. So
unfortunately or fortunately?
Fortunately, I don't know whether in return. I mean, it's like a talent show, right? You're judging. It's based on the American show Kill Tony. I did that particular weekend, Cyrus Brocha, and I was supposed to be there, and both of us ended up having something. So, but loads of my colleagues, comedians who were nothing to do with any controversy, like the Atul Khatris of the world, and even actors, Ashish Vidyarthi, Dalip Tahil, they were all judges. And now suddenly they have to go and, give some statement. So the moment it becomes that wide ranging, you don't know, right? Like you don't know whether it's worth the hassle.
Right. Anand, what do you make of it? First of all, did you see the show?
No.
Okay, you haven't watched it. But any clips you've seen?
Yes, clips.
The ones that I guess were shown in the context in the news. So what do you think of the legality of this? And you're studying law. The likelihood of the Madras High Court giving him anticipatory bail, does that help him at all, or will he still have to go for questioning? So it doesn't really help as far as the nuisance value is concerned.
No, legality of this first that the Supreme Court case that you were citing, which is being heard
right now. Yeah.
So and the moment the judges are of the opinion that it's a case demanding restriction on freedom of speech, they would come to the to another constitutional provision, that is the restrictions on the same article, and one of the 8 grounds is defamation. So now defamation, the high ideal of freedom of speech has to be balanced, because the Supreme Court is also of the opinion that right to reputation is integral to right to life. So it's also a question of human dignity to save a reputation. So that's the philosophical underpinning of this balancing of interest that goes between defamation and right to freedom of speech. Anyway, so other thing now, anticipatory bail, he has a good chance. See, two things: that you can file for defamation either under criminal law, which in IPC was under section 499, or in civil. But in criminal law, what is that? You have to prove that the intention was malafide, means intention was to tarnish my reputation.
Right.
But in civil, you don't have to even prove that. Means even without intention, you can. So people generally who want damages for monetary or also for go for civil, but it's a criminal case. Let's see. And now, coming to the case itself, I think it's apart from the dismal state of the merit of the case, is that it's a selectivity, because when this whole episode of him forming a new political party and splitting from his parent party was happening, so on internet, a lot more damaging material was already there. If you see memes and all that, so they are equally disparaging. So the what Anuvab was saying, that it's always the sidekicks who want to please the master. So master doesn't care actually about whether he is being tarnished or not, because you can expect a man with years in public life to be a bit thick-skinned, but this whole ecosystem of pleasing supporters and supporters going the extra yard to please the master. Now, so sidekick business is very critical to this. So that's an important point here. Also, in one of the cases that I cited here, where the distinction is being made about the right of private citizen reputation and a public representative's reputation.
Yeah, that distinction is made by the court as well.
Yes. So in like in lot other cases that I cited from the Hustler magazine, one very crude joke about incest and this, and how the court, US Supreme Court said no, we would have protected the individual's reputation, but you are a public representative, you are game for it. So whether that distinction is being made or not. So also in this age, telling that this is disparaging is a bit anachronistic, because means there is a flood of very, very demeaning memes and everything on internet. So why you are so being selective that target this, don't target that? If also lastly, I would like to apart from the constitution, the cultural foundations, I think Salman Rushdie in 2012, when in Jaipur Literature Festival he was not allowed, and India Today conclave, he cited one thing from the performing art, say it's considered the classical text, Natya Shastra, and of Bharat Muni from 2nd century BC. So it has, I have, so he said that there is a chapter in Natya Shastra where the gods are bored in heaven and they ask for entertainment. Let us do some entertainment, and a play is staged for their entertainment, and the play is actually a play of the war between gods and the demons, and demons who were watching this were very offended by their portrayal their portrayal in the play. So they walk up to the stage and beat the actors. So then Indra and Brahma make it a point to build walls around the stage and say that this is a sacred space for performative art, and this has not to be breached.
Violated.
So it's a text. So he said that.
So are you saying Shinde Sena are the demons? आप कहना क्या चाह रहे हैं आनंद?
No,
सीधा
I mean,
सीधा बोलिए.
his point was different that apart from the constitutional values, you have this artistic tolerance
Right.
in your script. We can also talk about the. I think I have spoken a lot.
But we'll come back to that. What about
the satire and the history of satire and violence in Maharashtra?
Oh,
So,
yes,
yeah,
we shall come to that. So I just want to go to Jayashree and then come to Raman before we go back to Anubhav once again.
I think two things, actually maybe three. I mean, see, I think we all know how these things play out, and there's very little capacity, I feel, to surprise oneself when you read the news. But even then, I was surprised. I was surprised that the BMC turned up. I was surprised that they said they're checking his call records. I think one thing is that if you've ever wondered, who is the real Shiv Sena, they're telling you now. This is very much the Shiv Sena of old. If there was ever any debate about which faction of Shiv Sena is authentic, this is clearly it. And I think, look, you can be an insecure politician, filled with rage, and a comedian saying things about you. And even if that insecure politician is not filled with rage, it's his supporters who love him and who are showing all this. And yes, we must come to his defense. I mean, but the fact that it has come to the level of state machinery being wielded against a person, a venue, a thugs vandalizing a venue, then literally the official city of Mumbai is coming forward, India's financial capital, sending its people to demolish a venue. It's absurd, and it's also drunk on power. And politicians overreacting is not a preserve of the BJP or its allies, but I think the impunity and the brazenness of it to shut it down, to cause detriment and loss, I think it is going to new levels. Okay, and a lot of people are saying things about Kunal Kamra's bravery, and I feel like it should be said. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't like his comedy and whatever, but that's might be true and that is fair, but it's also inconsequential. I think when you're sort of tipping towards autocracy, and I think subsequent events have shown us how these things are playing out. There is great detriment for him to be experienced, for him to say what he did, for him to then stand his ground and not apologize. It is quite tremendous. And sure, I mean, he comes from privilege, but so do all of us. And he has privilege, he has reach, and he is choosing to use that and take on sort of state and government. And I think that is a good thing. So, and I think it is important that people give him support in it.
But what is the stand-up scene in Chennai like, or in Tamil Nadu? I mean, is there a lot of local comedy happening?
Yeah, like in Tamil. And it's quite like irreverent. It's
right.
Fairly irreverent. But see, again, not like Tamil Nadu is some great state. Like under Jayalalitha and all, there were dozens, thousands of cases that were filed. The DMK also gets like DMK supporters in particular, even if the party officially is not reacting to things, it is its supporters who say, oh my God, like you are tarnishing reputation of X and Y. So that sort of trigger happy ability is very much there, but comedy can't exist in a form where you are not sort of sending people to demolish bloody venue over it. I mean, it is never this form of extremity. And I think people from Mumbai have always prided themselves in saying, and no offense to anyone on the panel who is from Mumbai, but they say, Mumbai, cultural capital, melting pot and all, but this is happening in the city.
No,
and it is terrible.
I have written a piece on Bombay back in the mid 2000s when I used to write a regular column on NDTV, calling out this cosmopolitan bullshit of Bombay for what it is, just one complete, marketing gimmick, which was bullshit back then, and it is even more bullshit now. I mean, talking of, artists not having power, many do, like Salman Khan. I mean, if you were to go at him and his fans would, just the way he does bullying to lesser known artists on Big Boss and all. But on today, he's posing with the Ram Janmabhoomi watch worth 34 lakhs. And I know Anuvab will not mind because he's not from Bombay, he's from Kolkata, where people like to chill. But Bombay has a culture of cowardice. It is inherent in the showbiz right from the time when I spent a year there. It was clear nobody has the guts to take a stand. And that is why I have always considered Delhi way more cosmopolitan than Bombay, irrespective of its very retrograde behavior towards women. And Bombay has caught up very fast on that, by the way. But the culture of ideas clashing doesn't exist in Bombay. Because showbiz is the dominant culture there, and the stock market is the dominant culture there. And both those will not disturb the status quo. There is no other culture in Bombay which dominates like the stock market and show business. And both these, in their very nature, are non-combative, in their sense. But on the Shinde of sidekicks, doing stuff, but the leader not wanting it, I think very often that's true. I agree with Anand, but in this case, it's not. And this is also a commentary that I have heard on channels, that this is Shinde's flex. Shinde is being sidelined by Fadnavis. Shinde is insecure about his power position. And this was his flex, that boss, I am relevant, you can't mess with me. And which is why he's given interviews that, this guy should be taken to task. And now he's trying to kind of say that not only against me, he said stuff against the Prime Minister also. But the Prime Minister has not... We may say a million things about Narendra Modi, but he has people who have, trashed Narendra Modi have not been attacked. Let's be clear about that. It is not like a satirist who, like that guy who does Narendra Modi impersonation. When he contested election, they didn't take his parcha, but there were different reasons for that. But it's not like... So I think for Eknath Shinde, it is very much a part of his political, positioning. It is a flex that, dude, I'm relevant. You can't sideline me. And I think Fadnavis is having fun at his expense. The second thing is, I found it very amusing where television anchors started off this talk by how they find Kamra's comedy distasteful. The loveliest thing is when people of, Navika's caliber, Bhupen Chaube's caliber, use the word distasteful in any context. That, dude... So I just find that hysterically funny. And even some of the other usual podcasters from the right-wing space, their commentary on this, on the quality of comedy. I haven't seen any comedy come out from that camp till date, which is of even smile-worthiness, let alone laugh-worthiness. So I think there is a political motive to this. It's not just a bunch of hoods going about this.
But
Raman, so
what do you mean that you don't think people who criticize Modi, no one is going after them? I mean, how...
No, I think satire, for example, if you satirize Modi, I mean, let's take the example of us. I did that show with Shwet, where I was Modi. Aise padta hu. We made fun of Modi. We were raided. I know why we were raided way before for other stories we've done. And I know what the stories were. You get to know from people what... But the way the immediate repercussion, or, Sham Rangila, he's been doing Modi impersonation so long, it's not like, a mob land up at his house. This whole mob landing up at your house and the cops backing them, I haven't seen that happening because Modi was satirized. If the political, game gets disrupted, at least I think for Mr. Modi, it is only, does it impact me electorally? It's not about someone making fun of me. If it's an electoral impact, there'll be repercussion. If there's no electoral impact, I don't think his ego will get hurt. Ki, bhai, let me know. My mobs will go beat up someone. That is unique to Yogis, Eknath Shinde's, the rest. I haven't seen any evidence of someone mocking Modi and having to face an immediate repercussion from his mob.
I mean, that Vikatan cartoon, you could say, arguably was... It mocked Modi, and so therefore they went after him. And he didn't really shut it down either. So that would be a...
That's true. That's one. Raman, so you were saying?
No, in criminal defamation also, I think it is not easy to prove that I have been defamed because I have faced one such defamation. In criminal defamation, he just has to bring in 5 people that he knows in the court, and they will simply give one simple statement saying that his image is tarnished for me because Kamra has said these things. So the 5 guys will come and just like a parrot, they will repeat this sentence. And the case is fine. I mean, he doesn't have to prove anything. Yes, Kamra will have to prove. The onus is on Kamra, in fact. In defamation cases, the onus is not on the complainant. The onus is more on the person who is defending.
For defamation, if you go for criminal, the onus is on you that the satire or joke or any insult, contempt was intentional, and this intention, that is a criminal component, that is mens rea, that guilty mind. So this is the onus on the person who is the victim of the said defamation.
So practically, I don't think it is difficult. That's what I'm trying to say. You can just 5 persons can come and they can just give a statement and it is proven. It happens like that. I mean, the case goes on, but I think the largely the onus is with the person who has been accused of tarnishing the image. And second, as Anubhav was saying, artists and journalists mostly don't have mobs behind them. Mobs are always behind with the politicians, and especially the deputy chief minister. He has got so many supporters, obviously because they get peripheral jobs, and they are always stuck with their leader. And as and when something happens, this army is always ready to attack. And the third thing is, I think Kamra, whatever little I have seen, I think his political position is very clear in his satire.
Yeah.
And here I think he spoke about Nirupam also. He read some parody about Nirupam, who had changed parties so many times.
In fact, this changing parties was one of the themes of his this act. But before I come back to Anuvab, because I do, I know you know many of these people personally, the stars of Bombay, so you have to be careful about what you say without pissing off your friends. But I would just like to point out, because we have also received a notice for defamation, criminal defamation, especially when Times of India had that editorial, where I said that irony, you're payloading Gyan, that criminal defamation is such a retrograde step. This was received by us in the 5th of March 2022, from the Azad Maidan Police Station under Section 91 of the Criminal Procedure Code, whereas Mr. Neville Dadi Master, authorized signatory of the complainant company BCCL, which is the mother company of the Times Group, it's called whatever the old lady of Bori Bandar or something they call this, the Times, having office at Trade House, Kamla Mill Compound, Lower Parel, It appears you are acquainted with the relevant facts related to the case. I hereby summon you. It is the publication of highly defamatory and derogatory remarks against material against the complainant, its Channel Times, now its anchors and senior management. So we have received criminal defamation from none other than Times Group. I have it here. I have lots of notices here. I have a full thud of notices. So happy to, get into a longer discussion, because half my time is spent with lawyers. That is the fact of running a news organization in India. And ironically, news organizations that payload Gyan on their op-ed pages about criminal defamation being retrograde are sending criminal defamations. So Times, I hope you guys pass this on upstairs to the buffoons who inhabit your prime times. And they are buffoons, make no mistake. It's not defamation. It is my opinion, and I would argue fact. And you can send as many criminal defamations as you want, but that is a fact in our country. No one really gives a shit about freedom of speech as long as I'm criticized, because it is a certain elite who are unused to being challenged, who are living life in their way which they don't want to be disturbed. So if a Salman Khan or I think the only person who sometimes slightly resists is Shah Rukh, the entire showbiz, like for example, this happened in Bombay. Kunal Kamra is a star in his world, but the stars with real power, no one has the guts to say a damn. I mean, the Khans, the Bachchans, the thises, the that, they have real power. They're not going to step up for anything or anybody.
Yeah.
Which is why I think they are becoming more and more irrelevant as time goes by.
And Kamra is very consistent.
He's very consistent. I mean, I think we've worked with him. By the way, we will plug the show we did with him and Rajora. We did 10 episodes, right? With Newslaundry. So he's, and I don't always necessarily agree with him, but he is consistent and his comedy is great. He's great at delivery. But yeah, Anuvab, to you, the whole, art being a mechanism to challenge power, to give show a reflection. In fact, in UP, that Burana Mano Holi Hai kind of tradition in Banaras, I don't know if it still happens, has been there for the longest time. Do you think that is completely eroded in Bombay? It was always like teetering, but do you think it is getting worse or better?
No, I agree with the point you made earlier, that there's no Indian city with some cosmopolitan exceptionalism. Like I think Jayashree mentioned about Chennai. I think in Calcutta also, if you criticize Mamata Banerjee, there'll be FIRs against you. I mean, Bombay, obviously, it's the power centric, the Maharashtra power is very strong. So if an artist says something, like some of the lawyers were mentioning, they will come after you, and you've really got no power. Now, it is true that Bollywood stars, to some extent, have their own fan bases and stuff, but it's not in their best interest to come after, to go and defend Kamra or India's Got Latent, because maybe they don't agree. Maybe they agree with Eknath Shinde not being criticized. So individuals, who support this kind of art form, are maybe a few hundred on the weekends. I mean, if you look at the scale of stand-up comedy in India, right? What are we looking at, right? Maybe Zakir Khan is probably the biggest stand-up in India, with maybe a couple of million followers, and they can fill stadiums of, I don't know, 1,000 people at a time. That those numbers are tiny compared to the people they're picking on. Like maybe the Indian public don't want the CEO of Ola to be criticized, or Anand Mahindra to be criticized. Like, you're right in the point that you made, that this was years ago. I was doing a show where someone said, at a corporate show, where someone said, Anuvab, feel free to say anything. We don't have any censorship. Just don't mention anything specific about anyone. And that's been my guiding principle for years in comedy, which is everything is fine as long as it's not about me. So the moment it's about any individual, I don't know whether we have the ability to sort of accept it. The other thing I find, is I don't know. Like, for example, a lot of people like to file cases because it's good publicity for them also.
Yes.
I mean, if there was a high cost to filing a court case, the politicians would still do it because they've got the money and they've got reach and power. But a lot of the smaller cases, I think, would go away.
Yeah. In fact, the Karni Sena case in UP, right? In fact, some arrests have been made, which is encouraging. A bunch of Karni Sena in Agra, they attacked the home of one MLA, if I'm not wrong, who had said something. They said about Maharana Pratap or something, and Rana Sangha. And there has been police action, but it is purely, like Anuvab said, to get publicity. Dekho, we are also somebody.
Can I ask Anuvab a question though? Like, I mean, so when you're saying, you have to be really careful to not insult a specific kind of thing, and you keep that in mind. So then how do you write jokes? I mean, what is it like to write?
That's the true talent.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, Jayashree, do you have a favorite comedian in India? Because ours is a small community.
Right.
Like most people know each other. We also know each other's sets.
Yeah.
Like we know what we write about. Like, say, if you're a Kanan Gill, you're writing about love, romance, cows, whatever. If you are Biswa Kalanrath, you're interested in IIT. You're interested. I think
you have your sort of speciality.
Yeah,
basically.
I think. I mean, name a comedian you like. Like if you're Manik Manna, you're writing about your Jat friend who doesn't know how to behave. And I think by and large, you don't know. Maybe someone will get offended. Rahul Subramaniam many years ago said something about DJs. Do you remember this? There was a mob of DJs that went to beat him up.
Really?
Oh my God.
I didn't know DJs had a mob.
That's a great point. I don't know where they gathered, but that has been among all the violent cases, to me, the most interesting, because it's never from the quarter you think it'll come from. You don't know who gets offended by what anybody has said. Loads of people like Daniel Fernandez or Saurabh, the people who put out videos, they'll mention some obscure thing that offended some subgroup who then had an issue that they never thought would ever be So because we're such a complicated, diverse country, the moment you say something specific about anything,
There is always
Someone will,
a group to.
yeah.
In fact,
Someone will,
I saw this fantastic, graph representation by, I think I saw it on Insta, if I'm not wrong, where this guy explains the 4 quadrants of where jokes lie. So he says there's one quadrant which, are offensive and funny. Then there are ones that are offensive and not funny. Then there are those that are not offensive and not funny. And then there are those that are not funny and offensive. Basically the 4 quadrants.
yeah.
And he says that quadrant that there are not offensive don't exist. That quadrant doesn't exist because this is India. And
and I'm saying, even if you make a basic mother-in-law type joke or a farting type joke, somebody's getting offended. You know what I mean? Like, there is someone who's on the receiving end of. But what I notice is there's a lot of Schadenfreude in India with humor, which is that if you are powerless and the joke is on you, people are willing to laugh.
Yeah.
Like something about someone who's incapable of dating, or someone's physical appearance is weak. So if you punch down,
that's so acceptable.
Somehow it's acceptable.
Which is actually goes against the very essence of
nature of
stand-up.
comedy.
Right. So the moment you pick on, or you say something racist or sexist to point out like say a boy and a girl are talking, and you've written a scene, and the boy says something to the girl like, "You're so dark," whatever, something offensive. People laugh at that. So they miss the fact that that is a satirical message. You want the boy to be portrayed in bad light. People will clap at what the boy is saying because they agree with the sexism in the underlying thing. So you get a lot of insight into values of society by what people are laughing at. And I've noticed that when the weak are punched, people find that funny for whatever reason.
Right. So we'll come to the legal aspects and the Delhi government after this, but we must let young Anuvab go. He has given us an hour of his time. So, but before we say goodbye to him, I would once again plug his podcast, Our Last Week. I love it. The complete nothing nature of the conversations they have. My favorite was the abandoned underwear at an airport, I think. Where was that?
Someone sent us a photo of a... But this is the thing, like, if you can't talk about any of the big things, all you're left with is nothing. So I should mention one tiny thing which I think is important about how India is changing, which is, and you would have seen this in Kamra's response, a lot of comedians, both in how they release their material and how they're communicating to the public, have completely and I think this is important for Newslaundry because you guys are observers of media. They have completely, as you would have noticed, bypassed mainstream media. Anytime there's a controversy, all of us comedians gets hundreds of calls from TV channels and newspapers. And well, I wasn't here, but as in I can speak for myself and others that we by and large ignore it. We do not respond at all to any mainstream media. And Kamra said something about his opinion on mainstream media and why he doesn't respond, which is his opinion. But I think most people don't respond because they don't think it's relevant anymore. And they don't respond because they don't think that their point of view would be put across. Right. So if they have anything to say, they go directly to their social media and communicate. Which is when I started out in comedy and when the AIB controversy happened, if you remember, from that to now, the biggest change I've noticed is a kind of abandonment of communicating with mainstream media.
Right.
So I want to thank Anuvab, and I will plug his podcast once again, Our Last Week, which he and his friend Kunal Roy Kapoor put together, where they talk about the most mundane things in the most fun way. But before we say bye, Anuvab, can you recommend something that would enrich the lives of our listeners?
Yeah, I just recently watched a stage production. George Clooney has come back with the film that he had made, Good Night and Good Luck. And he's made a stage production of it. And I recently saw it.
Where?
So he's touring the world with it. It opened in the US. Now it's playing in London. And I don't know what other countries he'll go to. Although we've got the NMACC here in Bombay. Maybe the Ambanis will convince Clooney to come and perform here. Anything is possible now
Anything is possible.
in this world. But it's very much about what happens when there's no due process. Like what happens when you just decide you'll ignore a court order. Just so, and I think it's very interesting because you guys were talking about America, what's happening here. Basically, there's no rule of law. What happens? So the play is about McCarthyism and what happens when there's a witch hunt against you and you have no due process. But it's kind of reflective of everything that's going on in the world. At a tiny level. What is Kamra's right of due process, right? Like who is, if the courts or the institutions are not there, he doesn't have a mob. Then it becomes like the medieval world, right? Everybody has a mob of their own.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they roam around with everyone's gundas, then it becomes like that. So the play is very much about that, and I loved it. I recently saw it. And there's a film which Clooney had directed, which won an Oscar.
Yes, of course,
But
that is
he's
famous.
clearly, the reason I thought that it's a great watch is that in some subtle way, I think he's announcing that he may run for president. It seemed
You
the
think?
vibe that I got.
Yeah?
Seemed like the vibe that I got because he ended the play, which was not in the film, with a speech about what happens when due process dies. And the play ends with Elon Musk's Nazi salute. So clearly, and the whole audience stood up. So clearly, it was a play, but it was also a political message. It's years ago, if you remember, Barack Obama had announced on the David Letterman show accidentally that he might be thinking about running for president. So I feel like it's the beginning of something with this play, with him. Now, whether he will last 4 years down the line, I don't know, and sustain, but seem like he wants to be a candidate.
So, but thank you so much, Anuvab. Have a good day, and we hope to see you in Delhi soon so that I can watch your performance yet again.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll definitely plan an Our Last Week live in Delhi.
Right. Great. See you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Now, the angle you want to discuss of just the tradition of satire, right? Is that what you're saying? Where it comes from?
Maharashtra.
In Maharashtra, sorry. The tradition of satire and the violence behind it.
In Maharashtra, means after independence, there used to be a politician and a satirist who ran this newspaper Maratha. So he was Prahlad Atre. So actually he ran into rough with a lot of politicians, but of course Bala Sahab Thackeray. So in fact, Thackeray once called him the pig of Worldly in Marathi. So pig of Worldly. So they had this. But what happened is that when he passed away, the Shiv Sena erected a statue of him somewhere in Mumbai. I read it in the newspaper. And there was also this Purushottam Deshpande. So on the stage when Mr. Thackeray awarded him some award, so he said something about the lumpinization of politics and this, and Thackeray responded by saying that we have made a mistake by awarding him. So, also this in 2003, if you remember, this Chhagan Bhujbal, the NCP, 2005, he was home minister then, NCP leader then. So there was a TV show, I don't know which channel is what, it ran a parody where they had someone, Bhujbal, so Armstrong and something, and the television studio was ransacked. And then Chhagan Bhujbal, 2005 case. So they have also that the famous satirist Prahlad Atre was also assaulted back then. So they have this. I think different states have different way of what they consider satire.
But Maharashtra, I think this consistency in the violence that is, follows it is been there for a while. But I think it'd be interesting to see the evolution or the whatever metamorphosis of the Shiv Sena from, I think ideologically, the amount it has kind of moved, the flexibility it has demonstrated, the Uddhav Sena, is quite fascinating, from what it was to what it stands for today. I mean, it's an interesting kind of journey of a political party and ideology. But before we move on to the case of the cash that was found at a judge's house in Delhi, on this, any last words, Jayashree?
No, I think
All right. So before we move on to the next case, and I also want to give a little bit of time to Delhi because I don't know much about it, but I think Raman, so you have an interesting take on their budget that they've presented. I want to once again plug our subscription and this project that we are doing with the News Minute and Newslaundry, journalists that will go across the country, look at police excesses. It is important we document and report and investigate such stories, and not just that so and so tweeted this and Salman Khan is wearing a watch worth 34 lakh, which is most of what I see on legacy media. And that is because we are supported by you. So do scan this QR code or click in the link in the show notes below and support our team of journalists who are fantastic, and we're all very proud of them. Now, this case of the cash being found at the judge's house, I'm sure Raman sir has spoken to a few people. I don't know whether Anand doesn't speak to too many people. He spends more time with books, like Modi ji. Although I think Modi ji only poses with them. I don't think he reads them. I've always wanted to actually ask Modi ji, if I ever get a chance to interview him. You know that photograph with swans where he's got those books piled up and I want to ask him, give me one quote from any of those books. I can bet you he has not read even one word from them. It was just for posing.
this is the reason why we're not getting interviews with Modi ji.
Otherwise, like he would have definitely said, come
yeah. Otherwise, he'd be like, yeah.
But on this judge's case, so there are so many theories going around in Delhi, and I think, it deserves an investigation which will take a long time to do. Or the theory that he's being fixed. Another theory that no, he's not. He is working on behalf of someone else. Then another theory, then another theory. It is something that I actually have not been able to have any view or position on, because there are too many inconsistencies on all sides. Like, for example, the time between when this happened to when it became public, it makes no sense to me. From the time when the fire broke out to when the fire tender reached, makes no sense to me. And as one politician in Delhi told me, अबे कोई अपने घर पे ऐसे कैश नहीं रखता, यहाँ गायब हो जाता है अगर हो, there are enough people who... So I can't make any sense of it. But Jayashree, what do you think? What will be the outcome of this? Although the government is using this, is trying to push that they should have more say in judicial appointments, which I completely disagree with.
Yeah. So one, like you said, there are just too many inconsistencies in how it played out. So we're saying that a fire broke out, either his personal secretary or his daughter who was in the house, he was away, called the police control room, the fire tender came, the fire chief says that he didn't find any money, but then later they said no, that there were, some say 15 crores. I think Navika Kumar on Times Now said there was some 50 crores, so it's very hard to say. Then the Times of India had a very mysterious story this morning where they said a mystery woman in a car sweet-talked authorities that night to access the outhouse where this cash was stored. So it all just makes no sense. So my thing is, when this news first came out, my lawyer friends in Delhi, so their first instinct was to say that this man, Justice Varma, is a very good judge. The wide feedback is that he's good, he's clean, he has a perception of a competent, fair and honest judge. And these reputations are not very easy to earn. I mean, lawyers are assholes in many sense, but lawyers will broadly know where a judge sort of lies on a spectrum. So it just seems peculiar that a judge who's held in such high regard by the bar is embroiled in this. Also, it's very crude that if he was a very wealthy and corrupt judge, why does he have sacks of 500 rupee notes in a publicly accessible outhouse, which he says can be accessed by the security personnel, can be accessed by staff. So on one hand, we're saying he's such a sophisticate that he has this personality of a judge with integrity. But on the other hand, he's such an unsophisticate that he stores sacks of cash. So it doesn't make any sense to me. These pieces don't fit together. Also, I find it peculiar that the usually very opaque Supreme Court is being so transparent. They put out that press release with video of the cash. They have photographs of the cash. And we are so used to the Supreme Court not doing these things that I shouldn't say it, but that takes away from the credibility. The fact that the Supreme Court is offering up so much information to the general public, I find that weird. Like, it is not something I'm used to.
सो आपके लीगल क्लासरूम्स और कॉलेजेस में क्या चर्चा है आनंद इस विषय को लेकर? और यू डोंट इंडल्ज इन गॉसिप?
नो मीन्स चर्चा ऐसी कुछ खास नहीं है, लेकिन मीन्स रेपुटेशन पॉइंट मीन्स people means judges in bar earn reputation for different regions, and different sections of lawyers have different things to say. So there is no unanimity or even consensus. So lawyers have different reasons to rate a judge very high. So that cannot be the sole point of means evaluating how he is or how. But let us come to the fallout, because as you said, there are a lot of conspiracy theories going on and speculations. I can also add 5 more to that. So
Okay, fine. Let's hear them.
no, I think means everyone has
Sure.
so I have my mischievous mind doing means overwork every time. So but fallout, like what she said, that CGI has ordered a committee to be formed, and the collegium decision that a committee will look into. Now this has been challenged for two things. There is a very oddball kind of lawyer in the Supreme Court who gets, he's very senior, but he gets means castigating remarks from the judges every time. His name is Matthew, he's from Kerala. He's very senior. So he has filed a petition and so that and CGI is said that yes, it would be heard, that why no FIR was filed. So the precedent that you cite, he says in his petition, I read his petition. So he says that the precedent that you cite is that in 1991 there was a case, Veeraswamy versus Union of India, in which Supreme Court said that the prior permission would be required if you want to initiate any criminal action, so action against the criminal act of any sitting
judge,
Supreme Court or High Court judge. So he said that, but at that time the judges didn't have in their mind that it would be a shield against filing a FIR. That so this amounts to a kind of situation where judges have immunity and they become a very special class of citizens enjoying impunity against penal laws. So this can't go on. First. Second, he says that you, he says CGI, you don't have any power to constitute this committee, because there is no provision that the collegium will constitute a committee to probe into the alleged criminal act of a judge. And the constitution has not given you power, nor any parliamentary law. So in what power have you constituted this committee?
So, it's coming up for hearing today.
Yes, it's coming up here.
So he has actually questioned the committee's legal standing as well. So the CGI has said that your case would be heard.
Yes,
and
it will
so
be heard.
I think
so. You said that you create a special class of citizens that have the impunity because of the immunity that they cannot be investigated. Don't we have the class of citizens in governors? Because in the case of Tamil Nadu, in the case of Delhi, and to an extent, I don't know, Punjab had already filed, there was already an order, but the governor of Tamil Nadu and the lieutenant governor directly disobeyed the Supreme Court order of who governs the state. And either they withheld files or withheld bills. But the Supreme Court could do nothing. I mean, if any one of us were to do a contempt of court and go against a court order, we would be arrested at once. So, aren't governors also...
Yes, but his point is that is constitutionally mandated.
I see. Okay.
So they have this protection.
So you mean even if the Supreme Court wanted, they could not do issue a contempt against the governor and get them arrested? Or that's not possible.
There is a process for that. There
I
is a
see.
process. They have to first approach the president, because he is appointed by the president, and so there is a process for that. But here he is saying that just on the basis of a case decided in 1991, you are using a case law, and at that time the judges who made this ruling didn't have this in their mind. He says that it's a case of oversight, that even FIR would be prevented.
Right.
So it is.
Raman sir, what do you make of this?
We have several special cases, special citizens in our country, the bureaucrats, the senior bank officers. For example, I'll give you, CBI has filed several cases of criminal conspiracy cases against the bank officials wherever the bungling had happened. Okay, whether it is Vijay Mallya or any other person. Now, something which people have not taken note of, but if you go to the CBI court, such cases go to the CBI court. But the bank or the state, they are supposed to give a sanction for prosecution of these bank officials.
Which
so they are
doesn't
not
come.
giving the sanction to
And this is
prosecute
for
these
public
banks.
sector banks.
Public sector banks. Okay, they are not giving these sanctions. So what is happening? The conspiracy angle has been removed from all these cases, and all these cases have been moved to the special court judge. I mean, they are out of CBI court. So CBI and by the way, a very senior CBI official I had spoken to, he says 99 out of 100 cases have gone out of the CBI court just because we didn't get
The
the
sanction is not
sanction.
come.
So I have also seen in cases of police officers, big police officers, who there were cases of culpable homicides against them. FIR gets done, even the charge sheet also comes. But the state administration or the center or the ministry does not give the permission for the prosecution. So they also get away with the murder. So we have several such special cases. Now, in this particular case, I personally feel that we cannot make any stand
Head or tail
as
on
of now. As of now, we should not also, because as Jayashree even used that there are many weird things.
Too sketchy. It's
Many weird things. So I think it needs a very proper reconstruction. This is a crime scene. So it requires a very proper reconstruction. When I say proper reconstruction, maybe you have to go a month back, 2 months back. You have to take
the CCTV.
you have to take this judge was in Delhi High Court for 8 years. So at least in these 8 years, the cases that he has decided, from which he might have possibly made this
benefited.
Benefited.
And also CCTV. I want to see the CCTV. Is it available?
I was about to come to that. So he lives in a Lutyens zone, VIP area where you have number of CCTV cameras. Say maybe there are 30, 40, and if you go, I don't know which road he's living on, but if I go to that road, I can see that all roads lead to each others over there. So there must be 30 to 40 CCTV cameras. So we need to see what is the status of those CCTV cameras. Okay, and then this money, 50 crore, where this amount, when the notes got burned. So how did you arrive at this thing, 50 crore? Who told 50 crore?
Yeah,
officially
exactly.
Nobody.
Where do you get that?
Officially nobody has said.
Yeah, I mean,
from the government.
I'm sure you've also heard about where certain reporters are known to be close to certain people, and that's why this report. But talking of CCTV cameras, you won't believe during COVID time when there was lockdown, so news came under what's it called, essential services. So while we used to record Hafta once a week, when all of us used to come here, I used to come at least 3 to 4 times a week, be in finance to sign checks for many of the other things, whether it's production related activities, etc. So I would come to office, and usually I'd come and I'd go maybe after 9:30, 10 at night. And during COVID, in Delhi, there was like no traffic, like none. Only really either ambulances or news related. So will you believe, because I used to go back via Lodi Road, I got a call on my phone saying, they said my car number, they knew it was registered in Abhinandan. You go, in the last 20-25 days, you have passed Lodi Road and the Tughlaq Road roundabout 2 to 3 times every night. What is this regarding? I was blown away. Who are you? Police station. He identified himself. I said, well, I run Newslaundry, and because this is essential service, I go to office, I sign checks 3 times a week. I have to get some production work done, and we record the Hafta once a week. He said, Acha, theek hai, just checking. So that is
fascinating.
So they had actually seen that the same black Scorpio is going every other night. They traced who it was registered under. I got a call from the cop asking why I passed that road. This because I passed through the VIP zone.
This is just the police station. If you go to Delhi Police Headquarters, and especially in the room of the person who is heading the traffic police, so you will see all the he has a huge, screen, which is I think over 70 special screen
with all the CCTV.
The entire wall is a screen, and he's checking.
Which was that case where the CCTV footage went missing just for that period?
That's what we need to see.
No, that was the Chandigarh case, where the CCTV of just when we needed it.
The mayor votes one, yeah.
No, but it came, there was for a particular time it missing anyway. So
it misses several
But
times.
the CCTV footage they are checking.
They are checking. No. See, they are going. I think so far, whatever little that I have read they are trying to reconstruct it. Whoever came to the house, their phones have been taken away.
Right.
Okay, so they are going to check their calls and everything, and their number will also tell their location.
Right.
And these persons, the judge had gone away. Okay, the entire family had gone away. So I think their cell phones must have been taken also. So I think they are trying to reconstruct it. CCTV is important. Telephones
but also
are important.
They're doing all this late, no? Because I think I saw it in the Times of India just yesterday that 12 days after the money was burnt, only 12 days later they sealed the outhouse.
Yeah.
And
till then.
So that gap in time is very odd, especially when they're saying the police control room was called on the 14th or 15th. Why are you waiting 12 days?
And in fact, if you talk to people who are the busybodies of what is happening in Lutyens, Delhi, some names also flying around that so-and-so's car had gone there during this period of time. So that person should also... Anyway, you want to say something?
In the chain of events, like what newspaper reports say that on the next morning, police were denied entry. That no, you come later. So the SHO says that we first went in the morning. Then they said no, not now. Then they went, I think, afternoon. And there was 7. Also, there was one procedural lapse that Panchnama was not done. So at the first instance, when you with 5 witnesses, you make a list of what has
was
been
recovered and sealed.
That's a procedural lapse, but that can happen in a fire kind of situation. But what kind of fire it was, it could be a very different kind of fire. But these all are speculations.
Panchnama, I mean, here you could see the video of some small time employee outside the house showing the burnt. So I
of
don't
course,
know.
Securing a space is not exactly the Delhi police's forte. But before we go to the emails, of which there are almost 60, and we have some emails suggesting how we should maximize, reading out mails. Some of our subscribers have sent recommendations regarding the Delhi budget. So you were saying it's very interestingly done. Delhi budget. It's what 18% bigger than what it was last time, or something.
The only interesting thing about it is that how the center is now have started doling out money.
Yeah, 15,000 crores, right? From the center?
26,000. 24,000 crore. In fact, 76,000 crore there was a budget last year. Now this time it is like we are also turning into 5 trillion rupees ka economy. So the budget is of 1 lakh crore. So of which 24,000 crore the center has given. I only want to say that how the previous government was gagged. That's the only thing which this budget reflects. Like, for example, the previous government had sought permission from the Ministry of Finance that we need 10,000 crore ka loan from one NSS, or the National Savings Scheme, organization. So, but there it is mostly the expensive loan. Okay, only 3-4 states opt, but when Delhi government needed it, they wanted 10,000 crore. So they were plainly denied. Now this present government is taking 15,000 crore, which has already been sanctioned.
In fact,
from
the
NSS.
increase from last year is 31.5%, not 18%. My God. Okay.
And all this money is coming out from the center. So I can very clearly see. And also, if you look at the gender budget, they had announced one scheme, of giving 2,500 crore to not each women. I mean, anyone who qualifies for this, and they yet to give those rules. They have very loosely mentioned a couple of rules about the household income, and also the fact that this woman should not be availing any other uh, uh, benefit from the government. So but they are going to come up with some more rules, so we don't know how many of them. If you see the gender budget also, the education, girl education, the budget has been cut. So it's very cleverly done. We are still studying it, but my main point was it very clearly reflects that how the previous government wasn't allowed to work, for so many years, and now when the BJP comes, so the double engine, as
This is what they
Modi
meant,
says,
which is, as Qureshi Saab said, it is completely undemocratic.
So as a Delhiite, maybe maybe it is going to be good for us. So let us see.
Let's see how that works. Now, we will go to the emails. As you know, the last 2 episodes, we have been grappling with how do you accommodate letters, because they are increasing in number. In fact, we had almost 50 last time. Now we have almost 60. We will read a few, but before I request Jayashree to start, we have 2 or 3 recommendations on how we can accommodate. Vijay Krishnan has written a very long letter, but he has suggested that he prefers a separate show for letters rather than a hurried reading of letters. He says there are those who want to disagree with the views, so those should be given priority. Those who are just, talking about there's a glitch in the app or there is something not working, those need not be read out. So classification of letters, that the ones that need to be read out because they're discussing something, and those that are just, pointing out something that's not working, that is more functional. So thank you, Vijay. All your recommendations we will discuss. Then K. Jairam has said, I wrote a letter last week in response to discussion in Hafta, but it was not read out. While I agree that it is difficult to read long letters, mine was about 250 words. Some exceptions are possible. So basically, Jairam's contention is that there should be exceptions because they need that kind of word count to dissect or critique or disagree with a previous guest. Like, for example, he wants to repudiate Amit Varma's, he says, annoying and oft-repeated assertion that the 1991 reform lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty. This is a rather widely held but incorrect view which needs to be contested, as otherwise many of your young listeners might well believe it. Unfortunately, this can't be done in a brief letter. It requires a more detailed explanation. Coincidentally, after I wrote my letter to NL Hafta, I found a letter in The Economist which argues my point with more effectively than I could. And Kaushik Jairam has sent me that letter. Thank you, Kaushik. I've read it. So I agree. I think there's certain, letters that have very detailed and well thought through arguments. Although I agree with you that the economic reform 1991 is not critiqued enough, because I think it provided a lot of opportunities for injustice and the power dynamic becoming richer. But Kaushik, I'm not sure that there is no evidence that millions were lifted out of poverty. I don't think that can be contested, although I do agree that it just changed the power dynamic, and the Ambanis and the Adanis became, they could just, ride over anybody. And a very unequal society is more dangerous than a by and large poor society. But yeah, so these are the two recommendations. There are others, but Jayashree, please, the few I have marked them in blue. I want to start off, because Manisha is not here. Read the ones specifically that are critical of me, because we should set the example. If we expect netas to be able to take criticism, we must be able to take it ourselves.
Okay, so I'll read out the ones you marked in blue.
Yeah, we can do that.
Just
But
start.
and the rest we can do later when Manisha comes, because many of them are about Manisha's views as well.
Sure.
And then we can also, based on all the suggestions we've got, a few people have actually backed your AI suggestion that all the letters that are more than 150 words should be fed into AI that make them 100 words.
I argued against AI.
So you argued. Then whose idea was that?
Yeah. There was a guy who wrote in using, and he said he had a very long email, but he used ChatGPT to summarize.
Okay.
It's not a bad.
So the few people have actually endorsed that idea. But yes, please go ahead.
No, guys. Say no to AI.
Also, there are 2-3 mails. They also send me to my mail.
Personal.
So for factual clarification, if it comes in the process, it's well. Otherwise, I will point out.
Yes, please do.
Cool. So the first email is from Sonali Singh, who says she's listening to the Hafta after a long time. Needed a break from the mad world. It does add a little something to the news and opinions one gets from a good local newspaper. In my case, Deccan Herald. Abhinandan's rant on patriotism definition debate was quite anti-national. Needless to say, I too subscribe to The View. I recommend the Real Science of Sport podcast to all media people who wish to express themselves and not sound like the neighborhood auntie or uncle on the matter of transgender athletes in women's sports.
Right. Thank you. I will definitely listen to this podcast, Sonali.
The next email is from Shur, who says a religious zealot would rather shout blasphemy to silence the skeptics than engage and change their mind. It's the same thing when progressives run away from uncomfortable questions, citing imaginary dangers. It's because they're scared of realizing they don't fully agree with the dogma. Should a trans man go to a man's prison? Should a 6'3" man be allowed to wrestle with a 5'6" woman? Should we respect zir, fir, and other neo-pronouns? The realization of the self-doubt is too hard. It's a lot easier to evade questions by thrusting J.K. Rowling and Aman Khalif into the conversation. I wish my fellow progressives would realize we are in a minority when it comes to a lot of our views. Every time we shut down a conversation, we're handing the loudspeaker to people like Trump. They take up the space to change the mind of fence-sitters using insane claims and stories. What is this regarding?
This is last week we had a short discussion on the trans issue. Because I think they had, US had removed it from the passport option, right? A third option.
Correct, yeah. Tushar says, panel, what are your thoughts on how to reduce brain rot content consumption and increase intellectual consumption? It's so easy to get stuck on Instagram reels and memes. After the tiredness from my day job, it's even harder. Deep realization about my own content consumption habits hit me hard during the recent IGL India's Got Latent controversy. I'm trying to make active changes. NL Hafta is helping. On the too many mails problem, one idea is polling on Reddit, reading the top most upvoted weekly emails and questions. CCP Gray, the YouTuber, does this if you want to see his implementation.
So basically, we put all the mails on the Reddit is what she's suggesting. And then
the ones that have
get
the highest
upvoted.
votes.
But then
But then for that, we all have to use Reddit, which I feel like is asking.
And not just us, even our subscribers don't have to be on Reddit.
All subscribers will have to use
Okay, that actually complicates stuff a little. But as far as the habits are concerned, Tushar, one is don't have Twitter and Insta on your phone. I don't have them as apps. So if I have to go them, I have to go through the browser. So that just disincentivizes you. And the second is make sure you have weak eyes like mine. So it's just such a strain that you just want to listen to podcasts, and that way you can listen to long 1 or 2 hour podcasts. So that is my way.
What a useful tip. Like, ruin your eyesight and then you're fine.
And then you're fine.
A lovely short email from Meet. Abhinandan's comments on the US having strong institutions has aged very well. Also, cancel culture is only a thing when it goes against the dominant narrative, and trans people have never had power anyway.
Right.
Shrikant says, hello, I'm a long-time subscriber. I want to write this letter to yell at my fellow subscribers. You folks are too courteous to do so. I don't understand the need to write detailed manuscripts as letters. The entitlement to demand explanations when they are not read out. Folks seem to think that letters being read out on Hafta is the only thing standing between us and dystopia. You've all made it clear that you read it in full. That should be enough. I strongly recommend putting letters through an LLM and reading out a 150-word summary. I heard Jayashree say, let's not feed the AI, but that horse has left the stable long back. Everything we put out on the internet is in any form used to train LLMs. It's fair game. And loving South Central.
Thank you.
My war against AI is going nowhere, is all I can say. Yeah, the next email is from Dr. Sneha. She says, oppression is invisible to the unoppressed. Abhinandan, you're often complaining about too much wokeness. On the contrary, there isn't enough. You're an upper class, upper caste, straight male. You've never been marginalized. Your views on LGBTQ plus were unsurprisingly not shared by the other 3 female panelists. In a feminist uprising, LGBTQ would be natural allies and not men, not even orthodox women. Please don't trivialize another person's lived experience of oppression. Your views are often insidiously misogynistic, as on a recent ANA episode when you discuss the movie Mrs. You speak for a majority of Indian men, sadly, when you declare that you'd rather go to bed hungry than enter the kitchen. With respect to LGBTQ plus, to say that you all are unaffected parties is unself-aware. As Fannie Lou Hamer said, nobody is free until everybody is free. Do better.
So thanks, Dr. Sneha, for your subscription and for your support. This thing about not entering the kitchen is a gender thing. You know, Dhanya doesn't enter the kitchen either. So I just want to say, it's like I've said, I love cleaning. Because, you know, for me, cooking is creating clutter. And like Arunabh Saikya, a wonderful reporter, had told me once, you have, what is it called? OCD. Because I'd keep, if anyone put the books this way, I'd put them this way. If anyone left tissue, I'd pick it up. So I just hate cooking. Why is that to do with gender?
Because it is a gendered occupation, right?
But if I say I don't like to cook or enter the kitchen, that means it's because I'm a man.
It wouldn't be brought up because you're an exception from a rule where, by and large, women are expected to do the cooking and men are expected to not. So when you live in that, if you occupy that world, as we unfortunately do, you can't just say, well, now I'm separating it now from gender. Nithala has also sent a very short letter, which is extremely amused by Abhinandan adding a disclaimer that his views are because of his maleness and privilege, and then proceeding to be the loudest voice in the room, claiming there is no nuanced conversation on this topic, drowning out all the nuance around him.
Noted, Nithala. And your mail came bang on cue.
And also, privilege and elite is very relative. A privileged class of a particular space would be an underdog in a super elite space.
Yeah.
So, it's also contextual. Means in general sense, yes, privileged. But if you encounter super privileged, you are the underdog.
And also in India, it's so complicated, yeah, because there is, of course, gender, there is caste, there is economic privilege. There is access, of course, India is the most difficult out of, any of the, whether this conversation is happening, in India it's the most difficult because there is so many intersections and conflicting, positions people are on. By the way, we've selected most of the emails that are shorter.
Yes, so the next one is from Gautam, who says, Dear NLN team, I've been a subscriber for 3 years and counting. I'm writing in regarding the Toadies episode featuring Abhinandan, Manisha, and
Meghnad.
There's a moment where Abhinandan does Aaj Friday Hai, and it cracks me up every time I watch it. I want to ask if you'd be willing to share any behind-the-scenes details about that moment, and if Abhinandan will consider reenacting it.
I have no recollection of this moment. Aaj Friday Hai.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll watch this again, Gautam, and maybe I'll reenact it in the next Hafta.
Right, the next email is anonymous. It says, regarding last week's discussion on LGBTQ issues and wokeism, I was disappointed in everyone's arguments, as a glaringly silly point about endangering future generations was ignored from a subscriber's email. Do people at Newslaundry believe India will go into population decline by allowing rights to the LGBTQ community? Even a hetero couple may choose to avoid having children or adopt or go in for IVF. The same applies to people on the queer spectrum. About me, as a 30-year-old man who came out to his family recently, I'm being forced into rigorous conversion therapy. I've heard suggestions ranging from homeopathy to alcoholism to having sex with cousins. Abhinandan, the wokeism you talk about, with all its faults, imparts courage to me and countless children and adults fighting to live in this society. Lastly, to the letter writer, I don't want your respect. I just want to have rights and privileges same as you.
Thanks, Anonymous. I don't recall the email that suggested that it would go into population decline, but maybe we missed that line. But you're right. If that line existed, we should have disagreed with it.
The next email is from Sanai, who says, "Hi all. After listening to the discussion on LGBTQ rights, I want to ask about the LTA episode we were promised. I think even with 3 women bringing nuanced points to the table, Abhinandan was quite dismissive. This is possibly the reason why he's somewhat disliked as a host. Seema was absolutely fantastic. Abhinandan, please listen more when you know you are the uncle. But overall, wonderful episode this week. Appreciate the nationalism and patriotism debate. Keep up the good work. Please invite people like Seema and Shah Rukh Khan more often."
Noted,
That
Sani.
episode is under production, and
We've
we will-
recorded actually 2 sessions, Jayashree.
correct, and we are going to make it into one episode, which should be out.
Damn, that'll be a long episode, right?
Yeah, but then based on that, we'll see how it goes, and then we may do future recordings. So we'll keep it
Right.
open to make it a series. The next email is from N747, who says, "Why is there no mechanism to renew a subscription before it expires? I want to block some money when I have it, like when I got a bonus for Newslaundry. I thought I'd renew it before my current one expires, but looks like I have to start an RD till my current subscription ends, then withdraw from the RD, and then pay for the subscription. I would absolutely do this for other entertainment option and keep the interest. For Newslaundry, however, I'd rather renew it early and make you in charge of the money."
So we've forwarded this to the subscriber engagement department. They will find a solution and send it to you ASAP.
The next email is from Mittu Tittu. Mittu Tittu says, "Hi team, I have been a long time subscriber ever since I got a job, but I've followed NL since its inception. Madhu's show was the hook. I've written to the team under several assumed names. About a new show for Anand, I've wanted to watch a print media critique show for a long time, where the host goes through the front pages of papers and magazines and analyzes their coverage of big issues, like nuisance, but for print and written media. Considering NL's USP, this could be right in your wheelhouse. Love you all."
Thank you.
And the next email is from Rakshit, who says, "I'm writing to second that the breadth and depth of Anand's knowledge sometimes disturb me. Amit and Anand are my favorite voices in Indian podcasting, so hearing them together in one episode was a privilege. Their conversations deep dive, engaging, insightful, and often surprising. With growing anticipation for Anand's new show, I'd love to hear him do the seen and unseen, grilling Amit on his skepticism towards the Indian election system and constitution from its framing to its current structure. While I respect Amit's views, I disagree. I want Anand to challenge him with counter arguments, examples, and nuances that Amit's privileged background may not have led him to consider. I name Anand my champion to fight the battle of Amit's distrust of India's constitution and electoral system." My God, Anand.
Anand,
We are ready.
Breadth and depth of your knowledge is disturbing our subscribers. Please don't disturb them.
And the next email is from Cyril, who says, "In episode 524, Anand, while describing the contributions of Nalanda University, mentioned zero being the foundation of information science. I want to point out the zero used in information science and digital domain is different from the number zero. In information science, zero refers to a state, mostly low state. But in number system theory, it's a number. Aryabhata's zero is a number, not a state. Many don't understand the difference."
No, actually, I meant modern science. Information science was inadvertent, and not. I didn't mean computational science. What you are referring to is the binary system 0 1,
Yeah.
which is fairly common knowledge. Most people know it, and but I was referring to how zero means change the world of calculations, the modern number system also, and science, physics, chemistry, all you took a lot of things from it. Also, one thing on the same point, that Aryabhatta zero was a philosophical nullity, like he propositioned it as a kind of emptiness as a form zero, but it was Brahmagupta in a century later, another Indian mathematician, who developed its functionality, that what you will get when you subtract or add zero to something, and other. But Aryabhat's other contributions, as William Dalrymple points out, are even more great. Means like he calculated the value of pi to 4 decimal points then. He was also saying things that Galileo and say Copernicus said 1,000 years later.
Right.
So if you read William Dalrymple's, he positions Aryabhatta not only as a mathematician but also astrophysicist. That's it. So that was an inadvertent error while speaking. I corrected it in another podcast. I think Charcha.
We left two, which is the short and sweet, 97 words. Yeah. Adish says, while hearing the Ranveer Alabadia case, the Supreme Court made some oral observations, and I quote, "Humor is something the entire family can enjoy. Nobody feels embarrassed. Using all filthy language is not talent. It seems the Supreme Court is trying to define humor and limit its scope based on morality. If there's some legal or constitutional basis for this, that's a question. How is the experience of other jurisdictions which have tried to impose restriction on humor? To what extent does it, quote-unquote, save young people from corrupting influences? It would be good to have some legal expert discuss this." Adish, you're in luck. We have a legal expert here.
What?
No, you don't. But honestly, is there any scope of what is humorous? There's no such. I mean, the Supreme Court has not in the past or can define this, right?
With paucity of time, we have discussed it in Charcha. He was also there. So what is the Supreme Court's test for it? They have come up with some tests. So to judge material. So you can refer to that Charcha episode. I have tried to reflect on it.
Link is in the show notes. And there's one last email left. Taranjot 126.
Yeah. Taranjot says, "Hi team, hope you're well. I'm 22 and with my small salary I've subscribed annually. My main motive was to support the effort as I've been seeing you guys on YouTube and improving my English. But as I read the articles in the podcast, especially Hafta, the one with Malini, love that show because of her, tell her if you can." I think he means Manisha. And also the book section. "Thank you for the effort you guys put in. I'm 2000s born. When I started following the news, it was the Godi era. It feels fresh to read and listen to you guys. Thanks again. Let me know if you guys reply on this podcast. I'd love to hear your reply." This is a very sweet email.
Yeah, very sweet. Thanks, Taranjot. Appreciate it. And appreciate the subscription. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your supporting our journalists. I'd like to plug a Kiran Bedi report, which demonstrates the impunity with which the police system works, how a possible lead to one of the most sensational crimes in, I think that was 2004-5, I don't remember the year, 3, of an assault in the Siri Fort parking lot, which made headlines in Delhi when there was a surveillance happening that was ordered by Kiran Bedi that the Delhi police was doing. A lead that would clearly lead to some evidence of that, of being able to close the case, was ignored. And now Ma'am Kiran Bedi is going on social media and making all sorts of claims and completely ignoring this issue, which is unfortunate. But do read that report. It has taken a very long time and it has been done very meticulously, with the editors and the journalists involved spending nights and days combing through everything to make sure it is responsibly written and articulated. The link is in the show notes below. It's behind the paywall, only for subscribers. Do subscribe and pay to keep news free. Let's get the recommendations. Let's start with you, Jayashree.
Yeah, I have one recommendation, which is a non-fiction book by Hampton Sides. So I think he's one of my favorite journalists and non-fiction writers out there. I previously recommended a polar expedition book by him. This one tracks the third and final voyage of Captain James Cook in 1776. The thing is, I've always thought Captain Cook was a very fascinating character. Like, he's this product of his imperial times, so you'd expect all the usual racism and everything from him. But yet he was also very different in that he wasn't a navigator who was very committed to the idea of empire. Also, what is great about this book is it includes oral histories of, like, the Polynesians, the natives of the lands that the Europeans claim to have discovered. I cried at the end. I found it very powerful. So it's called The Wide, Wide Sea. It's by Hampton Sides. And that's
Thank you. Raman sir?
I want to plug 3 of our stories. One is Kiran Bedi, of course. You have already explained what is it about. I think you just need to look at 2 aspects. That if you are having surveillance of your own daughter, on the sly, is something which is not allowed under the law. So this is the point that we have raised. And the second is, of course, during the surveillance, important lead came about, an unsolved crime case, a rape case, which happened sometime in 2003. So that lead wasn't followed. So these two important points that we have brought out in this story. Second story is about the stray cattle. Recently, and I think we are going to publish it today, right, Jayashree?
Today or tomorrow?
Today or tomorrow. So this stray cattle story is important because recently one guy was just knocked out. He died, and we went in search of that bull. And there are 80,000, over 80,000 such cattle, right, stray cattle. They are on the road. So we had an in-depth story. We went to the, this shelters also, and we have done this story. So this is second story, and the third, again, is a kind of promo which hasn't come out. Monday we are going to publish. This is about the magazine Outlook, which I think after India Today it became the most popular magazine, especially when...
In fact, in the late 2000s, during Prabhu Chawla's India Today's head and Vinod Mehta, it was much more popular.
Much more popular. They very controversial. They picked up some great stories, including the Nadia tape story they had broken. So what is the status as on today? So that story, a paywall story, is going to come out on Monday. So these three stories. And then I wasn't there last week, but whatever they're talking about your statement, I think there are two movies. One, I don't know what the name, the original movie is in Malayalam, and in Hindi it is Mrs.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Discussed that. Na? So there the women, what Jayashree is saying, that historically women are
in the kitchen.
Always in the kitchen. When it comes to cooking, you just think of women. So even when you make a statement that I hate cooking, in private it is fine, but on public platform, it is also not a smart comment, I think. Because why it is not smart? Because there is a structural context, which is an historical context, which is already there. So I think these two movies, if one see the role
we
of...
had reviewed...
And also fact that when you say that I hate cooking on the public platform, women in the end, they end up cooking for you. Mostly women end up... So that is why the this statement also doesn't sound very fine on the public
disagree, but anyway. We reviewed The Great Indian Kitchen on, I think, Awful and Awesome last year. When was it released? A year
ago? With Manisha also.
Yeah, she also.
Okay, so I am recommending a work of a writer who was awarded Gyanpith last week, Vinod Kumar Shukla. He's a Hindi writer, so but it's an English platform, so most of his work has been translated into English. So he also, it's not for awards, but he has now got an international profile. He won the Snobcrop Pen International Award last year. So perhaps he is the most prominent living Hindi writer now. And also, I'm not romanticizing or stereotyping a kind of writer, but he also resurrects a kind of literary persona, withdrawn and quiet, away from glare of book launches and this and that, also from the hinterland. He has been lucky that his work has been conveyed by some of his more famous, say, admirers to the metropolitan India, and that in that way he has been lucky. And but a very anti kind of image to the kind of literary persona you now see most. So I am that's why in that context, so a lot of his work like like one of his poetry collection, like Garm Coat Pahan Kar Ek Vyakti चला गया, और his famous novel नौकर की कमीज और इस दीवार में एक खिड़की रहती थी, and a lot of others. But Indian Express wrote a very short editorial on him, which somehow encapsulates what I am saying. I would add one more thing, but whoever has written it, it's an unsigned editorial because it's the side editorial.
Right.
So I am just reading 5 lines from it. At a time when job of a writer goes beyond the task of writing into the semantics of performance at literary festivals and book launches on social media, in front of an imagined audience, the quiet, unobtrusive life that he has led in Raipur is an aberration. A kavita se lambi kavita, a poem longer than a poem, to borrow from his own poetry. His unhurried approach, unencumbered by the demands of a plot, resists the rush of modern acclaim, inviting readers to linger in the quiet dignity of the overlooked that he captures in works such as Naukar Ki Kameez, Khilega to Dekhenge, and others. Now, and the last line, his writings continue to serve as reminders that art does not demand a spectacle, that it is both the mirror and the light. It grows in the liminal space between silence and sound, between absence and presence. Through Shukla, literature finds its home in the gentle yet profound pulse of life itself. So one thing I would add to that, it has been written well, but that when he speaks, when he spoke as his reaction to everyone, if you listen to 5 lines, it's like a poem. So he speaks in a way as if
it's not just prose, it's poetry.
No, he speaks in a way that he is very guilty about speaking, and the act of speaking is an act of violence that is disturbing the calm around. It becomes a violent act. So that is my takeaway from it. So that's my recommendation.
Can I say something about Vinod Kumar Shukla? There is a very good story, and I wish we could cover it. It's a good video story, but he lives in Chhattisgarh and he's 88-year-old. He had signed, with 2 publication divisions, writing, and they were giving him 9,000 rupees a year. Somebody came to make a documentary on him, and that fellow, when he came to know about it, he said, "You are completely
underselling
yourself." So now at 88, he has initiated a legal war with these 2 departments. So it's a very good story, which I wish we could go as far.
His son fights all these legal wars. He's 88.
Yeah, I guess he's not just... I have 3 recommendations. One is, I read The Hush of the Uncaring Sea. It's basically 4 novellas by Upamani Chatterjee, and it was followed by his book launch, which was partnered by Newslaundry, and I had a conversation with him. I think he's a really fun guy, really smart. So I highly recommend this book. I enjoyed every story a lot. So that is one. The second is a series called Ye Bhi Theek Hai. It's a podcast series that we've done with Kunal Kamra and Sanjay Rajora. I recommend that not just because Kunal's in the news. It's because Kunal's views are extremely interesting on a bunch of things. And this whole thing that one has to be consistent on everything, and because these are long conversations, you hear a lot of Kunal's views on things that aren't as black and white as many people assume from one stand-up act of his all. And I just found those conversations really interesting. And of course, Sanjay Rajora has really, his depth of knowledge also is amazing because he reads so much. So that series. And the third is, because you're talking about institutional collapse, there's an editorial in the Times of India by Dan Cassino, Donald versus Justices, What Next? And he speaks about in the past also, Abraham Lincoln had ignored the court, but the context was very different, and now the context is different, and what are the possible outcomes? So these are my 3 recommendations. On that note, I hope you continue to write in. We will have a system to include as many emails as possible. If we continue to get, if from 50 they're going to 60, 60 to 70, then I'm not sure how we'll accommodate it, but we'll figure that out. But thank you, Anand. Thank you, Raman
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you to our
Thank
wonderful
you.
sound recordist, Anil. Thank you to our wonderful producer, Priyali. And Ashish was somewhere around. She doesn't seem to be around now, but thanks to him as well. See you next week. Have a fantastic weekend, and we leave you with this song. Bye bye.